Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's SANS webcast, 7 Habits of Highly Successful Cybersecurity Operators by David Sylvester, sponsored by Lumu. My name is Carol Auth of SANS. Today's featured speakers are Eugenie Karab, Cybersecurity Solution Architecture at Herjavec Group. I'm sorry, I think I mispronounced that. Herjavec Group. David Sylvester, VP of Sales of Lumu. Jorge Orchilles, SANS Certified Instructor. If during the webcast you have any questions for our presenters, please enter them into the questions window located on the GoToWebinar interface at any time. Please note that this webcast is being recorded, and a copy of the slides and recording of this webcast will be available for viewing later today and can be found on the SANS registration page. And with that, I'd like to hand the webcast over to our presenters.
All right, thank you, Carol. And Eugenie, George, great to be alongside with you today. We have 60 minutes to uncover the 7 top habits of a highly effective cybersecurity operator. We know the jobs are challenging, they're not necessarily getting easier, and it's wonderful to have you guys as experts to walk us through this. So I think it's going to be a great discussion. Just so all the attendees, as they're coming on board, I see the numbers are going up. Thank you all for joining us today. We're going to go through these. We're going to pause about halfway through, allow some Q&A. So I want to encourage you guys to engage with us throughout, submit some questions. We'll try to get to them. You got, time with the experts here, and then stay around till the end. There's going to be a special bonus habit. There's also going to be a little giveaway at the end, so you don't want to miss it. And I'm really excited to get into this. So let's jump in. So, real quickly, habits, right? I was looking at the definition: a settled or regular tendency or practice, especially one that is hard to give up. So habits, 90% of our daily behavior boils down to our habits. In essence, they define us. So as cybersecurity operators, we better have good habits. Let's jump into what the 7 highly effective cybersecurity operator habits are. So starting off, let's start with the foundational piece. George, let's talk about the MITRE attack frameworks. So my first question to you is, do you see organizations using the MITRE attack framework, and how does that factor into habits?
Thank you, David, and hello, everyone. Welcome. Nice to see some very familiar names there and some new names. Thank you for having me, and shout out to Lumo and SANS. So yeah, the first thing first, right? Frameworks, right? Frameworks were created because we realized that things worked in different places, right? Different organizations, and then they've come together to give this out to the community. And MITRE attack is one of them, especially for us that are fighting and trying to understand how adversaries work. Now, attack stands for adversary, tactics, techniques, and common knowledge. Now, I will argue that it's actually a common language. It allows the cyber threat intelligence team to understand how adversaries work, share that with incident responders, with the blue team, with Security Operations Center, and even with the red teams that do the attacks. We can all talk MITRE attack. Now, starting out with attack is a great idea. Version 9 was just released a couple weeks ago. So there's new techniques, new groups, new software that are seen in the wild. And these are real procedures that are being used in the wild, that someone gets compromised, they see this procedure, they share it with MITRE, MITRE adds it to MITRE attack. So it's a great place to start. It's also a great place to measure where you are and focus on being able to detect and respond to these known TTPs, right? Tactics, techniques, and procedures. Now, this is a great starting point, right? And I love my friends over at MITRE, Adam and Jamie and the entire team over there. But do keep in mind that it's not all about MITRE either, right? It's a great starting point. It is things that have been seen in the wild. But if they haven't been seen in the wild yet, they're not going to be in MITRE attack. So definitely start with MITRE. How do you start with MITRE? There's 525 techniques, I want to say. At least that was in version 8 because I counted them. Don't ask why. And how are organizations using this? Well, your cyber threat intelligence teams can read reports, understand what an adversary did, and match that to your organization. You need to understand your organization using cyber threat intelligence, which I don't want to jump into because I know that one's coming up, and track where do you have detection, where do you not have detection, and ensure that you have detection and understand the TTPs that are most likely to target you, your organization. Your organization is different. It's not a bingo card. You're not going to yell bingo at the end because you caught all of them. But definitely start with frameworks. They were built and shared, and definitely contribute to them. MITRE has a call for sites. I think it's called SCYTHE or something like that. If you see something, definitely report it because other organizations are also using attack, and they're going to want to know.
Awesome. Thank you, George. And Eugenie, real quickly from your end, I know you're managing a lot of architectural stacks. Where do you see MITRE attack factoring in for your clients and good habits?
So first of all, thank you for having me here. My pleasure. I want us first to talk about habits a bit, because if you read about the habits and the philosophy of habits, it takes quite a lot of time for the habit to become a habit, at least 21 days or even more. So by doing something once or twice, it will not become a habit. And I think MITRE is one of these tools or framework that became a habit. It took time for people to get to the point when they're using MITRE, but as George mentioned, it's now a common language. When I call someone and I want to explain what happened, I can use MITRE as an example. It's become almost like a language, because the moment I tell you it happened on this step, you can understand right away. So time to resolution, time to understanding what happened is decreasing drastically. I now can operate faster, and I can much faster resolve problems and understand what happened. This is why we see many tools and vendors adopting the framework, using the framework, and when they show you a problem, they're not just telling you a problem, they're just telling you where it happened, or use the kill chain because it's much in depth with MITRE. They can actually tell you in which point and when it happened. So I think MITRE is an amazing tool to have. It's an amazing framework to have. And when do we know it's working well is when the vendors start to adopting them and showing the ways they analyze problems using MITRE. I like the conference and I like all the talks from MITRE as well. So definitely encourage people to go and check and start using the framework when they explain problems to other people.
Excellent, excellent. All right, and I'll throw in, you know, at Lumu, we have combined an intersection of compromise detection with the MITRE attack framework. So any confirmed compromise in your environment, you know, we're going to map it alongside the MITRE attack framework. And as a cybersecurity operator, that's really going to let you fine tune your stack solutions, your defenses, and optimize your playbook. So it's definitely a big part of us at Lumu as well.
David, I'm wondering, is this something came because your customer requested, or it came by design from the beginning?
That's a great question. It came from customer requests after we had, you know, first version of Lumu did not include this. And as we pushed out the continuous compromise assessment model, we later built this in a later version. Yep. So, all right, moving on. Number 2. So there's one. I'm just gonna say, I see a lot of other people have joined since we started. Just real quickly, again, guys, ask questions along the way. We're gonna stop at certain points so you can, you know, ask George, ask Eugenie questions. They're the experts here. We want to make sure, you know, we make this educational for you as best we can. Eugenie, I want to turn this one to you as the VP of Architecture. where you're looking to understand, what tools make sense at different enterprises. A lot of times, there's no shortage of tools out there, right? What are the good habits for cybersecurity operators and how they use tools on a daily basis? And how do we know that they're working?
So first of all, it's one of my favorite topics, tools versus people, or tools in general. Around 15 years ago, we had antivirus, email security, firewall, and pretty much that's it. Then SIEM came, and now we have probably more than 150, 200 different type of tools of vendors that do something, one piece or one feature. So it's very hard to know, do I really need this tool? But from my perspective, tool is only one part of the equation. If I don't use the tool, if I don't tune the tool, if I don't use all the license, then it's become shelfware, as we like to say. Or security theater, then I have a tool and I think I'm secure because I have a tool. Couple of ways how I guide people to know if the tool is being used is, first of all, understand, this is actually deployed as intended. Does it collect all the information that it's supposed to collect, or maybe prevent if needed, if need to prevent? Then, if my people are trained to use the tool, if they understand and all the nuances, how often they're using the tool, it's also a very good idea to ask people what they like and don't like about the tool, because often we will deploy a tool with the perception that it's doing something, but people will tell us, we don't like this tool, we don't like the GUI, we don't understand the GUI, it doesn't help us, we don't go there ever. So by have bidirectional communication with the people that are using the tool, you'll understand how effective the tool. The other part, we cannot just deploy tools by themselves. It's not like going to a steakhouse and ask for a la carte steak. You need to have it connected. You need to have it as part of the entire portfolio, with the salad, with the potato, with the wine, with everything else. It has to be part of the entire technology stack. This is the only way we will be able to create and see holistic view of what's happening in my environment or customer environment.
Excellent, George. And on your end, what are you seeing with your customers, bringing tools in? Do they have too many? What are the good habits that you're seeing around tool usage in the cybersecurity operator world?
Yeah, definitely people, process, and technology, right? So the tools obviously under the technology side are important, but as was stated earlier, people need to know how to use them. And that's very important. Prior to my current role, I worked at a large financial that had a very large security budget, had over 120 different tools, cybersecurity products, if you will. And at one point, our managing director said, this is crazy. We need to stop buying new stuff and let's actually assess what percentage of these tools we're actually using, what percentage of those capabilities, right? Because we test things in the lab, we look at them, wow, look, we're gonna get 90% coverage of MITRE attack. Let's buy it. And then through the engineering process, through the implementation process, you end up using like 20% of the capability of what you're paying for. Some of it could be because it's not tuned. Again, that's people and process. Other reasons could be there, right? You have to actually have your people look and leverage those tools. So we went off, and for about 3 years, we stopped buying anything new and actually started tuning what we had and achieved a much better security posture than if we just kept throwing money at the problem. So definitely you need some tools, right? I'm not saying go dump your firewalls and your IDSs and your SOARs and EDRs, etc., but have the people that actually know how to use it and how to tune it. Because today it might detect something, but that attack is going to evolve tomorrow, and you're going to need to tune it. And for doing that, you need the people in the process as well.
And I want to add something to George's comment. And I spent quite a lot of time with different financial companies that has a lot of different tools. And what we see often is people have a project and they're going to buy a new tool versus checking with the existing tools they already have talking to the vendor, talking to the SCs, maybe the tool has the capabilities and they don't know about it. Often the tool has the capabilities and you already have a license you didn't know you have, or the vendor may come up with these features that you're looking in the next version. And it's the same as we need to often check what's happening with our environment. We need to have an exercise of checking our tools, what they can or cannot do to understand the capabilities. It has to be an annual process or 6 months, depending on the time. You can save a lot of money, and you can also know that the tools are working much better.
Yeah, I mean, in summary, I'm hearing, you know, the highly effective operators know the tools they have in the wheelhouse. They're using them to the nth degree, maximizing the usage of them, and just on top of them. And they're very intentional with what they have brought in their house. Guys, I'm going to keep this moving so we make sure we get everything in the hour. So let's stay on point. So far, so good. Let's move on to number 3. So number 3, use internal security signals first. You know, the point behind this habit is, you know, we still see a lot of speculation, fighting the unknown, right? There's a mindset of focusing on what's happening outside my environment, and I'm almost getting obsessed with that. So I think the top cybersecurity operators are acutely aware of what's happening internally with their signals and working off that. George, let's go back to you on this one. Do you agree?
Yep, 100%, right? Every company's different, right? Of course, there's value in looking at what happens to your competitor or to another organization in your industry. But like you say here on number 3, right? Use your internal security signals first, right? You have all this data already inside, right? Leverage that. And going back to 2, right? It's all about having people that know how to do that and having the tools that can dissect that and take a look. So definitely look at those internal sensors. Nowadays, even more than ever, right? Insider threats are a big deal as well, right? It's not all about what's going on the outside. Not saying ignore that, but definitely start on the inside.
Okay, and Eugenie, just in terms of changing the mentality, you know, how can we get cybersecurity operators to focus more on the inside versus the outside?
There's many tools and many protocols and much information available already internally that people forget they can use. They can use the data from DNS, they can use the data from the firewalls to understand what's happening inside the company, and they not always need to go outside to look for some external information, while it's also important, like threat intelligence. But there's a lot of stuff available internally that people sometimes forget to use, and it can be used to the advantage to understand what's happening inside the company.
Excellent, excellent. And I want to throw in an example where Lumu is looking at internal security signals. You know, again, spam, a lot of times we see this as an afterthought. Email arrives, the email attack vector still, you know, as you guys know, probably the biggest attack vector there is. And spam is blocking out all you know, the emails from entering the inbox, so we think, right? But when you start working with that, you can see if the spam, when you analyze it, is it actually showing up on the network? You know, don't just block, but analyze how the adversaries are targeting the email attack vector and see if their trace is showing up your network. That's an example where you can use those internal security signals that we've built at Lumu with Spambox. Just to give you an example. We're coming up, guys, on number 4. We're going to take a break after number 4. So I see some questions coming in. So we're going to get to the Q&A. Please keep them coming. We'll be sure to get to them. But let's go to number 4. Just building off those internal security signals. There's no shortage of threat intelligence to work with, right? where do you see organizations, again, the highly effective cybersecurity operators, where are they gravitating towards to get good threat intelligence to work with?
It could be many different things. It could be as part of their SIM. It could be open source tools. It could be also, of course, paid threat intelligence. And many vendors, we spoke about tools before, provide their own threat intelligence that also can be leveraged. So this is where people start. And important here is automation around it as well, to take all the signals and put it together. Humans are not incapable to go and look on so many different locations and stitch it all together. By having a system that can aggregate the information and show them the information in one part will greatly help them to understand what's happening. And I know we will talk more about how many different sources we may have, but in my view, when we aggregate information, when we put them in one screen, we have a much better time and information to understand quickly.
Awesome, awesome. Thanks, Eugenie. And George, I mean, your perspective here, do you see a lot of threat intelligence, going to waste? Are we using them well?
Yeah, and that's the thing. I'm going to take a step back, right? Because got a little soapbox here and say that, right? You have data, you have information, and you have intelligence, right? Cyber threat intelligence is both a process and a product, right? So what is intelligence for your organization is different than what is intelligence for the organization next door. And that needs to be said early on. There's also different types of threat intelligence, right? We have indicators of compromise that could be domain, a hash value, an IP. And shout out to David Bianco, SANS instructor as well, with the pyramid of pain that shows also tools and TTPs. So all of these need to be put to work, but it's not a one size fit all. And it's also leveraged differently, right? Someone gives you a hash value or a domain or an IP address, that should be pretty trivial. You could probably automate the automatic blocking and detection if your organization has ever talked to those malicious or known indicators, right? But you also have the TTPs, right? I'm going back to the first one, right? MITRE attack. How are you leveraging threat intelligence over about TTPs, right? It's going to be different than others. Of course, there's a platform that brings these all together. I'm sure, David, you're going to talk a little bit about that.
Definitely. And this is a good point to just pause. We've gotten some really good questions I'll bring up, but guys, quickly to recap for everyone, we've gone through 4 of our 7 habits thus far. We talked about the MITRE attack matrix as a foundational piece. We've talked about using tools, starting with those internal signals, and then putting threat intelligence to use. So let me bring up some questions I'm getting. First question, it's a good one, goes back to the MITRE attack framework. Are there any specific resources you would recommend aside from general YouTube website research for understanding how the MITRE attack framework works?
Yes, 100%, and actually very timely, because MITRE just released their official training through Cybersecurity, and it's free. So there's videos there. There's multiple training from cyber threat intel, from basics of attack, of course, which is the main question, but also how to leverage it if you're in cyber threat intelligence, how to leverage it if you're in security operations center. So it's free, available to you right now on Cybersecurity. I'll post the link up. I'll look at here after I'm done talking. And they also have a certification. So like that, going straight to MITRE and learning from Cyber is probably the best way to start. Now, full disclosure, I have not taken it yet. It literally released like 2 weeks ago. However, I know the folks that have done it, and I have a high confidence that it will be good. Not sure if there's other resources you want to share.
I will add to George's. They had a conference, at least 2 or 3, I believe. So you can find them on YouTube, their official conference, annual conference, when they explain and what they do. Second is they can use tools like Lumo. I believe there's a free edition that people can download, import information, put some logs, and then not just to learn, but also see how it's working in real life. And because I'm a big believer of, I spent 5 years in the Navy and the Army, you know, you have to learn, then you have to go and shoot. So you cannot just watch, you need to actually go and touch the keyboard.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to build off that, Eugenie, yes, you guys at your disposal is a Lumu free account where you can intersect compromises in your environment with the MITRE attack matrix and see it in action, see your specific environment, your compromised landscape. We got 4 other questions so far, and this is great, guys, because we want you engaged. We want you maximizing this time. That's a good habit in itself right there. So second question, I think this is a good one for Eugenie. Based on what you've mentioned about tools, does that mean a good tool should be utilized on a daily basis?
Depend what the tool does. Some tools, we put them to block some things and we may be not using them every day. But if we're talking about SOC and Security Operations Center, we probably want to use the tool daily. Now, again, we all say it depends, because let's say it's a SOAR tool and it's supposed to orchestrate something. Then if I create the rule, I'm not going every day to change the rules. But if I use the SOAR tool, for example, to go and also understand my tickets, that I'm going to be using them every day. So it really depends what kind of tool you're using. If it's assisting to understand what's happening with my environment, then yes, I will be there daily because it's going to be my eyes on glass or dashboard. So it's really dependent on the tool.
Okay, perfect. Next question, do you guys have any tips on testing tools and practicing security concepts in a home lab project environment without exposing your home?
Yeah, I actually have a project called the C2 Matrix. It stands for the Command and Control Matrix. And with SANS, we've released a virtual machine that has 8 command and control frameworks already installed for you. We also have a how-to. So if you go to the c2matrix.com, click on documentation, we have the VM that you can download for free from SANS using the same account you used to log into this webinar. And then you get the virtual machine. We also cover how to set up the lab, both for Linux, for Windows. There's a basic lab as well as a more advanced lab, which is what we use to test about 70 different tools, right? So walks you through the attack, and then of course talks a little bit about detection and whatnot. So that's a great way to get started. And of course there's a bunch of others, but yeah, definitely back to the previous comment. Apart from watching, you definitely want to do it as well.
I want to add something small. Before
Sure.
you go testing, and this is one of the biggest problems I see with customers, you need to create use cases. What actually you're going to test? You cannot test a tool just because testing a tool, because you just go to the rabbit hole to understand, and you're going to play with it. You're not going to have any conclusion. If you want to just play with the tool and learn how it's working, be my guest. But if you want to actually understand the capability of the tool, you need to create use cases of what do you think the tool need to do for your environment or for you specifically. This way you can compare between tools or compare from, okay, I started here, but I ended there.
Okay, 2 more questions before we resume to habit number 5. Nathan here, I'm curious about your thoughts on a general cybersecurity posture in reference to using one vendor for all. So, I mean, this one I think would be good for either of you guys, so feel free to jump in. But basically, all eggs in one basket, one security vendor. How does that affect your cybersecurity posture?
George, you want to start or you want me to start?
I don't recommend it, and I'm a vendor. So yeah, don't put all your eggs in one basket. I don't think there's a single vendor that's going to be able to do everything for you, even a managed security service, right? And we have a lot of partners in that area, but there's just so much to look at, and you don't want everything all in one basket is my opinion, right? It also depends on the size, right? If we're talking a small business here with 50 employees, right? You get one shot or one vendor, then and it is what it is. But anything larger than that, you probably want at least 2. Same on the offensive side, which is what I've been doing for many years. You don't want that same company doing a pen test or red team engagement year over year. Change them up. They're going to come with a different perspective. And security is a process. It's ongoing. There's no stopping point.
Perfect. And I'll jump in on that one myself. What we're seeing with our continuous compromise assessment model is a quick way to check that your tools and vendors that you have in place are working. See if we're finding blind spots, stuff that's getting missed. There's no reason why you should just be all in with one vendor with the solutions out there today. So that's a quick way to, throw a solution out there, see what we're finding, compare it with maybe your MSSP or whoever, and you can do that. So I would definitely avoid all eggs in one basket too. All right, last question before we continue. How can we present to organizations the importance of insider threats without them feeling we are pointing fingers or trying to them feel as if we are devaluing the quality? So mainly just the topic of insider threats, not stepping on toes here. Any comments on that as it relates to habits, guys?
So doing training for people. We mentioned about spam before. So doing a training, inside training for people on security habits and security hygiene, what you can or cannot do. So by constantly doing this to people, people understand we're trying to train them and not just point fingers. And when they uncover problems and we find the problems, then people understand from where the problems are coming. And if you find an insider threat, I don't think it's a problem to point a finger. Or if you found a person, because person did something bad, and unfortunately people steal information before they leave, for example, or download the information not thinking they actually can do it before they leave, or people maliciously trying to do something in the environment because they're angry. I think it's totally okay to tell them you guys doing wrong because they're doing something wrong, and it's okay to do an example, maybe without mentioning the people name, of what happened in the company and why it shouldn't happen in the future.
Yeah, just to add real quick, right? Insider threats could be very different, right? There could be someone taking something on accident versus like actual malicious, right? So again, it's all process and program. Involve HR, not when you catch the incident, but from before. Let them know that you're doing these programs. Same with legal. Different countries are going to have different requirements. And if you find, right, based on your organization, right, working at a big global one, we would find some very interesting insider threats that had to be worked on with law enforcement as well. So yeah, it's not as black and white as you think. It's definitely a program and a process.
And definitely having HR involved in legal in advance, it's a very important part, because you don't want to create problems to yourself when you learn you're not supposed to do something and HR doesn't want you to do something.
All right, fantastic, guys. Like the engagement, lots of great questions. Keep them up. We'll do another Q&A at the end. We're going to get back to the 7 habits and with the bonus, so stay till the end. Let's talk about threat hunting for a minute. Good habits with threat hunting. What I think about this is there's finite minutes of the day. You can spend every minute threat hunting in your environment. So in your guys' experience, what does a good threat hunting program look like?
First of all, it needs to exist. It's a basic one, and we don't have it in every company. Second is you need to actually allocate time to continuously doing this. You cannot just say, okay, I'm going to do all the tickets and then I find time to do threat hunting. You need to allocate set amount of time a day that when you do threat hunting. And as the slide say, you actually think about different ideas, what potentially may happen in the environment. A bit back to tools, you need to have the tools that can help you hunt and give you information quick and in the way you want, because you cannot hunt without tools. Like you can, but it's become a pain. It's almost impossible to get good information. So this is, at least from my perspective, there are some basic habits that you need to do to have tools to do it constantly, to reflect what you did in the past, to compare with other people in a company or other companies, what they do and how they do it, compare notes.
Yeah, and just to add to that, right, after you have that, playbooks. Shout out to Roberto Rodriguez, who's a cyber war dog, and a free project called Threat Hunter Playbook, and it's available on threathunterplaybook.com, right? These are some basic playbooks, and of course you can take these and develop these for your organization, right? What are the top things, kind of going back to cyber threat intelligence, what are the top things that are most likely to attack you, right? And look, see if you can create a playbook for that and go hunting, right? Definitely, as far as a habit, again, based on your organization, I've worked in large ones where we have dedicated threat hunters, which is fantastic. But if you are a SOC analyst, for instance, work with your manager, see if you can get at least an hour a day, right? And make it a habit, right? Go threat hunting, apart from looking at your SOC and looking at your SIM and your dashboards and all that. Take an hour of your day, right? Or each SOC analyst, an hour a day to do threat hunting, have the playbooks, and as the slide says, right? Aim to figure out the what, when, where, why, and how. And of course, if you can figure out the who, that's always important. That does matter, but that generally comes later on, right? But yeah, definitely playbooks in addition to what was already stated.
I like that. That's good stuff. So it has to exist in the first place, be consistent, use some type of, good assessment initially to form a hypothesis, and be on top of it every day. That's ultimately going to help the threat hunting ability. All right, let's move on. So after you do your threat hunting and you find the threat that you need that has hit home in your environment, let's talk about what happens next, right? Mitigation, remediation, more of that IR here. What do you guys see as the most critical habits, that you see with your highly effective cybersecurity operator as it relates to mitigation and remediation? Eugenie, I'll start with you.
So first of all, when you found a problem and you mitigated the problem by closing a firewall rule or do something else, you cannot stop there. If you stop there, you didn't actually find the source of the problem. You need to check if this particular problem exists on other systems. Then it's the same if you have a leaky roof and you put a bucket under, you can just leave the bucket, but you still have a leaky roof. You need to actually go and understand the source of the problem, how the problem actually occurred, from where it came. Maybe it moved from a different system. Maybe there was a lateral movement. You need to get to the point of a source and then remove the source, mitigate the source. And this way, the problem will not happen again. And you're not going to be just duct taping the problem. You actually will be able to find it and remove it from your environment. And potentially, hope so, you're going to remove a much bigger problem in the environment, because if something happened in the environment, you need to understand if data left the environment, if something else happened, why it happened, and what was the intent of the malicious people that were trying to get inside your company.
Yeah, it's all a cycle, right? You have to do the lessons learned part, and we've all been there, right? Worked the incident, 3 weeks of what felt like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, drinking Red Bull and eating pizza, very unhealthy, right? And then when you're done, you mitigate it, you think you're done, and you need sleep, you need breaks, right? But you have to do that lessons learned. If you go and take that break then, which of course is bad because you've already been working 3 weeks, you're going to forget things. And when you get back from that needed time off that your managers gave you, right? Because work-life balance and burnout is real. You are going to get thrown into another incident, and you're going to forget to do the lessons learned, which completely avoids everything that was just stated, right? So it's a cycle. You have to do the lessons learned as well.
I want to add something small, George. I was thinking just about it. When you're making changes in your environment, you have to write them down. You have to basically put in all the changes you made in the environment, even if you need to do them very, very fast, and because you need to contain something right now. Because when you come back after the 3 weeks, you may don't remember what you did. You may need to undo some of the changes. You may open ports or open systems that you not intend to open, or you say, oh, I will do it temporary because I need access to the system. So it's very important to kind of have a history of all the changes, and especially the temporary one that you plan to undo later on.
Perfect. Perfect. Great nuggets there for everyone. Guys, just to reiterate, keep the questions coming. We're getting to number 7. We're moving through this. We want Q&A at the end here. But all good stuff. Mitigation, remediation, absolutely critical for a cybersecurity operator. Really good stuff here from Eugenie and George. Let's keep going to number 7. All right, this is a big one. I hear all the time on Clubhouse. You know, there's a great quote: "The more you learn, the more you realize you don't even know." You know, as far as staying afloat in the cybersecurity industry as an operator, there's no shortage of information out there. Eugenie, I know you even have a cybersecurity podcast. You know, what would you recommend for cybersecurity operators that want to keep sharpening their axe?
So first of all, SANS podcast, amazing content, and they release all the time. There's many other podcasts. Our podcast, Security Architecture podcast, we also released quite often in a bit different format. So podcasts are 1. Webinars, as the same we're doing right now, is 2. Talking to other people, engage in conversation on LinkedIn. Read LinkedIn, ask questions, reply to questions to generate some conversations. Join on Clubhouse or other platforms in conversation with people and debate on stuff. There's multiple communities on Telegram, Signal, WhatsApp, or Facebook even, when people have ideas and they exchange ideas until they get the conference backs and they can see people live, you know, and touch people as well.
Yeah, can't wait for that one. So great ones, right? ICS, the Internet Storm Center at .sans.org, right? That's a daily must read, right? Just open it up every morning, see what's going on. The SANS News Bites is one of my favorite. It comes out twice a week on Tuesday and Friday, and gives you the headlines, one paragraph of what occurred, and then you get some editorial comments from some of the top minds in the industry. And then I'm going to shoot myself in the foot on this one, and I'm going to say Twitter. Twitter is a great place if you follow the right people in InfoSec, where you are going to get some really good blog posts, some really good discussion, etc. Right? Follow the wrong people, it's going to be a dumpster fire, right? Just like my 2020 mug here. So be careful, but Twitter is pretty good. I'm on there at my name, Jorge Orchilles, and a number of lists on there that are really good. Sometimes you hear things first there before you hear them on the news. Also some other, right? The Record is one of my favorite ones. Caitlin is over there. Wired, right, for some mainstream stuff. But yeah, you gotta keep reading. You're always learning. If you don't like to read, definitely at least listen to some podcasts and whatnot. But yeah, we're always learning. You have to always be learning. Every day changes in this industry, and I love it because of that. And hopefully you do as well. And of course, we are open and inclusive to everyone here. So if you are on Twitter, say hi, and we'll introduce you to the crew.
Awesome.
I want to add something small. Ask questions.
Yep.
Ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions, you know, if you're not sure, and challenge other people as well. As George says, that not everybody are providing correct information, and if you think it's incorrect, challenge the person. If they know what they're saying, they will defend themselves, and you maybe find a new friend.
Exactly. That's what it's kind of what I tell my daughter: question everything. Sometimes it gets me into trouble, but I completely agree. And I want to do a selfless plug for Lumu, because I know the people I work with. You know, they put this event together with Eugenie and George. We're all about education and giving good value. So keep up with us. We have analysts on our blogs. We don't just do our product pitches. We're really getting into these visceral topics. So if you want to learn more about cybersecurity industry, keep tabs on Lumu, our blog, our events. You won't be disappointed by that. All right, that's number 7, guys. So grand finale bonus coming up. Just real quickly, we still have some questions coming in. We're going to get to them after the bonus. So do me a favor, do George, Eugenie a favor, get those questions in, all right? I'm getting prompted here to the right. Right now I got a couple good ones, but keep them coming. Grand finale, all right, bonus habit, we got to do it. We had to keep you here. This one has to do with dwell time. This is what we view at Lumu the most critical metric for a cybersecurity operator. If they are in your system and you don't know about it, there's a whole lot of ripple effects and implications that can come of that. But larger picture, we see that if you're watching this dwell time laser focused like an eagle, you're going to have this mindset that you're compromised in the first place. And kind of like going back to Eugenie, who said threat hunting doesn't even exist at a lot of organizations. A lot of organizations still don't have that mindset that they are compromised in the first place, that the adversaries are already inside, and that it's this race to limit the damage once they're inside. 6+ months, years in some cases, just does not cut it. This number is actually going down, which you would think is good news on the surface, but it has more to do with the attackers, the adversaries, being more efficient on their end than anything. So, dwell time, at Lumu, this is the metric we keep our eyes on. Eugenie, let me toss it over to you, and then George. Eugenie, what do you think about the dwell time metric?
It unfortunately exists, and people need to think about it, and people need to have good backups of the systems in case something happened or when it happened, if they need to roll back. And they need to think about this in mind to do table topic exercise, to do compromise assessment, to not just rely on all the tools. They actually need proactively to understand what's happening in the environment, to use tools and people to see where they are right now and if there's a problem in the environment.
Okay, yeah. and George, as a red team attack emulator, what's your take on this?
100%, right? So if you look at how the offensive security space has evolved, we've gone from a vulnerability exists, it's open or closed, and it has a CVSS score of critical, high, medium, or low. Those metrics, okay, but we've evolved. When we do red teaming, right? When we do purple teaming, as we were talking earlier on, and adversary emulation, we are looking at different metrics, right? These TTPs aren't open and closed, right? You either can detect them or you can't, right? So that involves logging, sending in to a central log aggregator, alerting, etc. But then you have people in process. How do you calculate that? Where are those metrics? And time is where those are, right? Just like we hear the dwell time, right? The attackers were in this long. How long did it take them to reach their objective? And then from the blue team side, how long did it take you to detect, right? There is a metric 11060 by Dimitri, co-founder of CrowdStrike, of the time to detect, time to investigate, and time to remediate. You have goals that are now based on time, right? And that 11060 is 1 minute, 10 minutes, and 60 minutes if you're going to stay ahead of some of the more advanced threat actors today. That might change, but if you follow all the habits we've talked about and have these goals and of course measure them, I think you will improve and definitely do a lot better than where you were today.
Good stuff, good stuff. So, again, just have that mindset. You're compromised in the first place. It's not that prevention's not important, but it's really the evolution of cybersecurity. We got to know where we're compromised. We got to be efficient at getting to that, limiting that damage these days. Guys, we got 10 minutes left. I'm really enjoying this. Let's just do a quick recap. I got a flood of questions coming in. Some are very juicy. I think you guys will appreciate these. But you can see everything we did. So just 5, 6, 7 in bonus. Threat hunting abilities. Our first question is going to be on that one, so be prepared. Don't skip remediation. Learn, learn, learn. We talked about good avenues for that, and then the dwell time. So going back to threat hunting, I think this is a good one for George. Is threat hunting process a blue or red team process?
Well, I'm a big advocate for collaboration and purple teaming, right? Where you have the red team and the blue team working together, right? Not just the red team, oh, does a new TTP and then gives you a report and then the blue team has to do the threat hunting. No, work together, right? You can operationalize this where let the red team do the investigation on how the TTP works so that they can emulate it and you can see how it works. And then you do detection engineering and then you create that playbook and you can go threat hunting. So definitely, I'm a big pusher for purple team and the collaboration, right? That doesn't mean that a red team, a stealth red team engagement doesn't have value. Definitely keep doing those, keep doing your pen tests and whatnot. But throughout the other times, we're definitely work together, collaborate, and yeah. And purple teaming, a lot of people think only red and blue, obviously, because that's how colors work, but cyber threat intelligence as well, right? Like what should the red team emulate? That should come from the cyber threat intel team. And then once you can threat hunt for that and detect it, let the CTI team know. That way they increase their knowledge as well.
Okay, awesome. And I'm gonna keep us on point because there's a lot of good questions I want to get to here, which shows you guys are engaged. So thank you. Keep them coming. All right, we got 9 minutes here. I think this could be good for either one of you guys. In your opinion, what has been the most shocking breach that has occurred since the start of the pandemic?
Wow.
It's a tough one, right? That's loaded. I don't know if anything jumps out at you, but
Yes, SolarWinds from my perspective.
there you go. Good one.
Yeah, hands down.
I actually want to, George, I want to have a bit of a chat here because there's a lot of vendors that jump on SolarWinds breach and claim, oh, if you had me, it will never happen. And I think it's not really correct. We need to spend more time on application security and development of applications, and this may prevent things like SolarWinds breach, in my mind at least.
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway of SolarWinds is that everyone can and will be breached. If you are not working under assumed breach after you saw FireEye and Microsoft getting breached and actively disclosing it without any regulation that forced them to, so shout out to them for that, you are losing sight on where we're going, right? Assumed breach was probably the biggest one. The second one is the supply chain, right? You are trusting your tools, right? And we're actually debating this on Twitter right now with Eve from the Netherlands. She's also a SANS instructor. And the question was, there's a patch out from Microsoft. Do you patch immediately so that you don't get exploited? Or do you test it and ensure that there was no other adverse effect, right? Whether it's crashing your system after the patch, which we've all been there, done that, or that patch has some backdoor because the vendor was breached, right? So it's interesting. I think definitely the supply chain side is a big one, but if you take one thing away from the SolarWinds breach is that everyone will be breached.
And again, I want to keep us moving, guys. There's a lot of good stuff to get to, but I'll just add, maybe we don't even know what it is yet, right? Maybe it hasn't even come out yet. Anything's still possible. Eugene, you wanted to add something real quick?
Basic hygiene. We learned later on about password in SolarWinds. So as the company, don't always look on what happened with somebody else. Look internally. What do you do with passwords? What do you do with basic hygienes? What do you do with patching? How do you do things? There's a lot of basic things you can do in your environment that can prevent majority of other problems.
All right. Okay. Let's do, I'll let one of you guys do this one. We'll keep it moving quick here towards the end. If you were hiring a new employee for a SOC, what entry-level jobs would you look for on his resume?
Does he know MITRE attack framework?
All right.
I don't know if
Good.
that's that entry level. So I
Nah.
started in a SOC coming from a sysadmin perspective. So anyone that has that technology background can come into security. It's actually a lot easier to teach you security than it is to teach you development or technology or how networks work or how operating systems work. So my personal case, I was a system admin at Terramark, and they had a SOC, and I wanted to get into security, and I asked the right questions and got in. But network engineering, really anyone that understands technology would be a great entry level for a SOC.
If they have a basic understanding of SIM and how logs work, and there's enough free SIM system that people can understand how it's working, because in the end of the day, for SOC analysis, you need to look on logs and traffic. So what is in the log, source, destination, time, what happened? It's a very important features of factors in person, because it will have them later on. But as George says, you need to have a technical mind and be able to analyze information.
Okay, next question. Do you think dwell time, going back to dwell time habit number bonus, do you think dwell time is indirectly proportional to the number of tools you have for incident detection?
I have
You
no
mean
data to back up or confirm that. I simply don't know that. Maybe.
you mean if you have more tools, then the time will be less?
I think that's what they're getting at, yes.
No, I don't think it's related. At least I didn't saw any indication that the more tools the company has, it somehow helps them more. How they use the tools, how they're implemented, it's a completely different question for habit number 2.
Yeah, and that exactly. I think going back to number 2, it's quality over quantity. Just because you have 20 in your arsenal doesn't mean you're going to be getting that compromise visibility that you need. So that, that's one that we would hit at Lumu really hard on you if you want to learn more about that. But think quality over quantity for that. All right, last question before we get away to our giveaway. Anyone currently do threat mapping documentation? If so, what are some of the techniques you use to develop? Real quickly on this one, guys. Threat mapping
George?
documentation.
Yeah, so we do this. We actually, shameless plug for a blog I have called Threat Thursdays. So once a month, we look at a threat actor. We go through the cyber threat intelligence, we extract the TTPs, we analyze and organize them, and then we create an adversary emulation plan so that we can test ourselves and our clients can test themselves. So again, it's a process, right? It's not like, oh, you could just pull this report and see it. I mean, MITRE did come out with TRAM that is, we'll read through a cyber threat intel report and spit out TTPs, but it's not there yet, right? It's still a process. So yeah, as far as a tool, I don't do it with any tool. We read the report, we highlight TTPs, we map it a MITRE attack, we try to grab the procedures, and then we create a plan and share those plans.
Excellent. Thank you, George. All right, let's get to the wrap up, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this. I want to just let you know that, these habits, a lot of this we take very seriously at Lumu. And I want you guys, if you're interested in the MITRE attack framework, if you're looking at internal security signals, having that compromised mindset, go ahead, open a Lumu free account. I highly encourage it. You can create a gateway, start tossing us your network metadata. We'll show you where you're compromised. And just today, we will send you a cool t-shirt. You can see it there. You'll look good. It's an awesome shirt. Highly recommend it. So please, if you're interested, open up a Lumu free account. For the questions that did not get answered, we will follow up via email. I will work with Eugenie and George to make sure we get answers. And with that, I want to wrap things up, guys. I want to thank Eugenie and George for taking the time out of their busy days. These guys know their stuff. find them on LinkedIn, follow them. Please find myself on LinkedIn, follow Lumu. We really appreciated the opportunity to work with SANS here, and we look forward to staying in touch. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone, for joining. And that's the end of the session.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you so much, George, David, and Eugenie, for your great presentation, and to Lumu for sponsoring this webcast, which helps bring this content to the SANS community. To our audience, we greatly appreciate you listening in. For a schedule of all upcoming and archived SANS webcasts, including this one, please visit sans.org/webcasts. Until next time, take care, and we hope to have you back again for the next SANS webcast.